Welcome into another episode of Red Zone Talk, episode 20 in the books. The playoffs, not in the books. We're starting episode 20. It's not in the books
Yeah,
yet.
it's not
Will be
over
very
yet.
soon.
Dang.
Playoffs are here. I'm just excited. I'm ready to get into it. So not only do we have the playoffs starting, and we're excited to talk about that, it is Tim's favorite, one of my favorites. We got to talk about Black Monday too, right? We have a lot of head coaching things that are open. I'm Owen Burke. He's Tim Hunt. I forgot to say that part. But
Yeah.
we want to talk some football. We got to get into trivia and all these things.
Yeah. We're going to be quick today. If you're watching on YouTube, first part is going to be trivia. Second part is going to be talking about Black Monday here. So I am going to start chaptering when we switch to stuff too. So
Heck yeah.
if you're on it and you don't want to listen to us talk about trivia, you can skip ahead. So if you are finding us on YouTube, because that's now our biggest platform by far and away, we're on Spotify, Instagram, and TikTok, all under Red Zone Talk or Red Zone Talk Pod. Instagram's the only one that's Red Zone Talk. Everything else is Red Zone Talk Pod. Same thing for YouTube if you're on Spotify. So thanks for joining along. We're gonna jump right into trivia, like we said. A lot of stuff to talk about, so we don't want to waste valuable time out here today. And I've got a fun little trivia game for you. So.
Ooh.
Your game today is I'm going to have you name me, with it being Black Monday behind us and everything like that. Probably the most viable candidate for head coaches are offensive coordinators. Saw a lot of defensive coaches fired in this cycle. I want you to name me as many offensive coordinators as you can in 5 minutes. So
just offensive coordinators that are currently in the NFL.
Currently in the NFL, listed as the offensive coordinator. There are some teams who have their head coach listed as their offensive coordinator. I don't know exactly how many there is.
Okay.
Let me double check here.
It's going to be an interesting one. It's going to be fun.
Actually, there might not be any. I thought there was a couple, but I lied, I think, when I said that. I definitely did lie.
So there's none?
There's no head coaches.
That probably makes it easier, truthfully.
Yeah. Defense,
I don't have to think about it.
Defense, I think there was 4 this year. 4 head coaches that were their defensive head coordinator. So no strikes. I'll give you a little bit of leeway, like on hints and stuff like that, when you start to get outside the pack. Each one you name is worth half a point. So technically, if you magically named all 32 OCs, you would get 16 points. So I'm going to open it all the way up, but to get 10, you basically have to name 20, which is harder than people probably imagine it is, but still.
Yeah, I think it's going to be even difficult for me. Luckily, there's some low-hanging fruit here.
Yeah. So are you ready?
Yeah, tell me when to start the timer. I'll start naming them.
Oh, I got the timer ready. Okay.
Oh, beautiful.
We are live. Go for it.
Okay. So Todd Monken is Baltimore's offensive coordinator.
Yep.
God, was it Brian Callahan is the Bengals offensive coordinator? Is that his name?
Brian Callahan is the Bengals offensive coordinator.
Like
that is correct.
Some looks. The Bills is Joe Brady.
Joe Brady is the Bills, and for some of those, like those ones, I would have accepted Ken Dorsey as well. So, but yeah.
Kellen Moore is for the Chargers.
Correct. That's 4.
I need to probably write the ones down that I get just so I don't double back here. Monken, Callahan. Who else did I name so far? I got Brady.
You got Todd Monken as well.
Joe Brady. Eric Bieniemy in Washington.
Washington Commanders is Eric Bieniemy.
So Billy B, your guys' OC?
Billy B is the New England Patriots offensive coordinator.
Bill O'Brien. I know there's going to be some more easy ones here. Let's see.
I'm going to tally at the end how many you get right. I'm just deleting the names as you go.
Oh, good. AFC South.
So you have the Texans, the Colts, the Jaguars, and the Titans. Only one of these guys is getting some kind of head coach love this year.
God, what's the guy in Houston? He was in San Fran with Shanahan.
He was, yes.
Bobby Slowick.
Bobby Slowick is correct. That is Houston's.
Slowick.
We got 3 minutes left here.
Okay, we're rolling. We're getting some names here.
Yeah.
Matt Nagy's still with the Chiefs. He shouldn't
Matt
be.
Nagy he's technically listed as the quarterback's coach, but yeah, he's their offensive coordinator.
He's their OC, yeah.
I would think about that division. That division's pretty dang easy. Kellen Moore is the other one you got.
Yeah, I
that I
got
hadn't
more.
gotten to.
Man, I have no idea who Vegas is. Did they fire their OC when they fired
McDaniels?
McDaniels?
They did, but that guy you're not going to know. Like, that guy's really
the guy
tough.
that got fired,
or the guy who got fired and the guy who it is now. That's really tough.
Okay, so I don't think about them.
Denver's a name you definitely probably know.
Is it Lombardi still?
It is Joe Lombardi. Yes,
okay.
Nice.
Okay,
thought you'd get that one. That's why I told you to stick in that division. The Dallas Cowboys has been an offensive coordinator for, I know, the Jets and the Seahawks most recently. So that's a name you should know.
I should know. Before we get there,
son of famous coach. Go ahead.
The Jets is, come on, the guy that was in Denver.
Got this. Yeah, you're right there.
Denver and Green Bay. Nathaniel Hackett.
Nathaniel Hackett is the Jets.
I kept wanting to say Christian Hackenberg, and I was like, wrong Jet. wrong Jet here.
Wrong Jet there. Okay.
Oh, Schottenheimer's still in Dallas.
Schottenheimer is still in Dallas. Nice. Good get.
Your former coach you're talking about there.
Bears just got fired, so that should be a name on top of your head. The Lions is another guy who's getting a lot of head coaching love right now.
Ben Johnson.
Ben Johnson for the Lions. There we go. Chicago's I think he got fired this morning or yesterday morning.
I'm trying to remember if I even think of. I remember that they cleaned house, but I could not tell you who it was.
Los Angeles Rams is the brother of a head coach right now. He was in Green Bay in New York, and now he's the Rams.
The Rams OC.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is,
and then the 49ers is their head coach. There was one.
Well, Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah.
Man, I'm gonna Rams. Brother's a head coach.
Coach. You're down to 50 seconds. Brother's a head coach in the NFL. He was the Jets offensive coordinator last year before Nathaniel Hackett.
Mike LaFleur.
Mike LaFleur is in Los Angeles. Yes.
Okay. Now it's gonna thin out really fast.
Now we've got some tough names. If you're not going to get the Chicago Bears one, Indianapolis Colts is a longtime offensive coordinator. He's got a really fun name you might know. Boy, and now it's slim pickings here.
Yeah, I was like, I feel pretty confident with everybody.
And then you got 15 seconds. The Pittsburgh Steelers, you got two choices here. You should definitely know one of them.
Who got fired? Matt Canada.
Matt Canada, I will take that. You got 4 seconds left. 3, 2, 1. All right, that's time. That's a good run. You got a lot knocked out there. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
Did I get 20?
14, 15. Really good run. We're gonna round that to 88 points. So
I'll take it. That's a pretty decent week of trivia overall.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna round it and give you the 80 points. That puts you at 450 to my 380 as we currently sit. Some names you didn't get. Again, these are all really hard at this point. Frank Smith is the Miami Dolphins offensive coordinator.
No.
Alex Van Pelt is the Cleveland Browns offensive coordinator. Jim Bob Cooter is the Colts offensive coordinator. That was the only one I thought you might be able to get.
The legend himself.
Yeah, he's been around a long time.
Jim Bob Cooter.
Press Taylor's Jacksonville's. Never heard of him.
Press Taylor is a name that sounds familiar, truthfully. I don't know why. Tim
Kelly was Tennessee's. Bo Hardegree was the Raiders one. That one was real tough. The New York Giants is Mike Kalafka. And he was another name that's been bouncing around after Dayball's year. And he was in Kansas City prior to that as the quarterback's coach. So
the reason I remember Press Taylor is because he went to Butler. That's why. See, I was like, that name is so familiar. Yep, back in the Butler days. That's why.
The NFC is definitely was not your strong suit.
No.
The Eagles was Brian Johnson. former
Yeah.
quarterback coach for them. That one was gettable. Chicago Bears was Luke Getzey. So Luke
I should have
Getzey.
gotten Getsy. Yeah. Fucking hell.
Packers is Adam Stavanchi.
Nope.
Minnesota Vikings is Wes Phillips. Um, Atlanta was Dave Rogon. Don't know who that guy is.
Did they
Carolina
fire him?
Panthers.
Did they clean house or did they just fire Arthur Smith?
Typically when they fire, like most of the time when you fire a coach, you keep all the coordinators under contract until you hire the new one.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. Good point.
So, can't remember. Panthers just denied their defensive coordinator, DeMarco Ryans, I think it is. Yeah. Is that what it is? DeMario? Something like that.
That's Texans coach. Go.
No, if you look up the Panthers DC, I can't remember his name. He just got denied to interview for another DC job because they're keeping him under contract till they hire the coach to see if they want to keep him. New Orleans Saints was Pete Carmichael. That was maybe kind of gettable. Tampa Bay was Dave Canals. Arizona Cardinals was Drew Penning. And the Seattle Seahawks was Shane Wardon. So,
the tough part with OCs is that we're now in the day and age where the head coach is the offensive coordinator a lot, or like you think of them, right? Like Shanahan is listed as the OC, but like when you think of Mike McDaniels, I'm like, I don't know who their OC is because I know
yeah.
that like that's the guy that's running the offense, really.
Yeah. I think you had a really good showing there.
I'll
Like,
take 16.
17 is like definitely not something to like feel bad about for sure.
Not mad at all.
All right, well, I guess that chart is forever stuck in my my notes now.
Shortest
Next.
trivia segment ever? Question mark.
Yeah, that was pretty good for us. Yeah, that was about as clean and tight as we can get it. Under
Yeah.
15 minutes is like phenomenal for us.
Good on you, because that is that's how you keep it on a close time. Is you just put a timer on it.
Yeah,
Just put the stress on.
I was like, we got a lot to talk about. I don't want to like mess this up. Okay, next thing we're going to talk about. We're an NFL podcast, but we do have to at least acknowledge that Nick Saban retired from college football. So obviously, the greatest college football coach of all time.
Bow down.
It's going to be a coveted job. Like, there's going to be a lot of people that are after that job. It's going to be kind of interesting to see how that plays out. But Nick Saban, not a great NFL coach, but the best college coach of all time, without any question there.
Coach. Undoubtedly.
You have any other thoughts you wanted to add to that, or?
I mean,
I just would feel bad if we didn't talk about it at the very least.
No, I don't. I mean, what can be said that hasn't already been said? I mean, like I think he's going to go down as one of the most memorable coaches of all time, especially for our generation, because like Bill Belichick spanned a little too early in my time frame, right? Where like, I mean, I watched him, but like Saban's dominance, I don't know. It was more. I think they were more dominant, honestly, over the college football landscape. They were just there year in, year out, recruiting class, draft picks. I mean, ESPN ran bell to bell just every national title game that he's head coach today. Filled the whole day of programming for him. They're like, look at that. Programming guy gets a day off. We're just playing Nick Saban national title games. So, respect. I'm curious to see. I don't know if he's actually done or not long term. Like, I don't think he's going to go somewhere else right now. I do think the retirement sticks for a bit, but I'm curious to see if his love for football itches him back to the game.
I think he's done. He's in his 70s, right? Like, guys in their 70s don't typically come back. It's the guys who retire in their, late 50s, early 60s. Those are the guys that like somehow creep their way back into football. But guys who retire in their 70s, for the most part, are done and calling it quits at that point. So
yeah, and I agree with you because he started to do more media stuff. Like I couldn't. If 5-10 years ago you would have told me like, oh yeah, Nick Saban's going to be on a weekly talk show on ESPN every week with Pat McAfee, I'd be like,
yeah,
what are you? This guy's doing media stuff in his free time? Hell no, that's just not. Nick Saban's too much about football to be talking to Pat McAfee, right? So I think he has that transition already lined up, and he's getting into more of the talk stuff. The only reason I have that hair of doubt is just that I don't think it ended the way he wanted it to. Like, I mean, that's
He
Not a
left
Nick
before it got
Saban way to go
ugly,
out.
but I mean, this was probably one of his better coaching jobs he's ever done. I mean, getting that team into the playoffs after losing to Texas so early on in the season and then
Yep.
beating Georgia in the national championship. I mean, that's the ultimate stamp on, hey, Kirby Smart, whatever you go on to do, you're not me, pal. You
Two of
just
these, Kirby.
yeah, go ahead and keep two of these on your mantle for me, because whatever you do, you're never going to be better than me. So
It's
I
true.
it wasn't like, he didn't go out on top, but no one ever retires when they win a Super Bowl or win a national championship, because you think, oh well, if I just won one, I can get back.
Yeah,
So
unless you announce it before the year. Like there's been a couple times like Peyton and Ray Lewis did, but as a coach, I don't know if anybody's ever
and
retired off of a Super Bowl.
and college football has gotten so heavy into NIL and other parts of it that it's hard. It's a year round job now to be a college football coach.
It
It
is.
used to be easier than the NFL. Now it's actually harder. I think it's kind of flipped in that aspect because you're doing so much recruiting. So, but
Yep.
I just wanted to spend a couple minutes to talk about that. All right, now we're going to talk about the openings here. We're going to rank these jobs. We're going to start from number 8 and work our way up the list. We're
I
going to
like that.
talk about why we ranked them there. We're going to talk about the coach they let go and whether we thought it was the right move or a wrong move, all that kind of stuff. So um, let's jump in. Who do you have as your number 8 program?
Number 8 team on this list, and I miswrote and goofed it. I think I can. This is hands down my number 8 is Carolina Panthers. Um, the roster is not great. They're not in a great cap spot. Like of the 8 openings, they are fifth in cap space, which isn't terrible. I think it puts them like middle of the pack in the league, if I remember right.
Yeah, bottom half of the league, 21 million. It puts them
Yeah.
bottom half.
And they spent some money this last offseason, right? Miles Sanders hasn't panned out so far. Adam Thielen was a damn good signing, right?
Yeah.
But you never have a good offseason if your best signee was a 32-year-old receiver. Like that's not a great offseason or great free agency class, I guess is the best way to put it. The biggest thing that comes down to that, this is why I knew this coming in. As long as David Tepper is the owner, this is probably one of the most, if not the most unattractive job in the league, in my opinion. You never want, unless he holds multiple jobs, right? Jerry Jones is also the GM. He's allowed to be in headlines because he's talking about these things. As an NFL owner, you never really want your name brought up. You do not want to be a figure of attention unless it's just because, like the Kraft family, right? We all know Robert Kraft. Why? Because they won 6 Super Bowls. That's why I know
Yeah.
Robert Kraft. Not because of this, that, or the other, because of some scandal or an email thing. David Tepper's throwing drinks on fans. He's had 6 head coaches in 5 years. It's not a guy I want to work for. And also, they retained their GM, which also usually doesn't bode super well for a head coach in the long run. It doesn't usually work, but
So I had the Panthers actually as my number 7 ranked job.
okay, I can take that.
And I'll kind of talk about it. Like I'll jump into my number 8, like kind of on the end of this. I thought it was rash to fire Frank Wright. Like it wasn't going well, but I think you have to give him at least 2 years. If we're into year 2 and it still looks like that, like I think it's a different conversation. Um, there was no chance to development, and there's no chance for any development, right? It was a real struggle. Sorry, I've got a cat. I'm trying to not step on my laptop and destroy everything here.
Just close all the tabs.
Yeah, I'm trying to avoid that at all cost. But yeah, they shouldn't have fired Frank Wright in the first place. I think anyone who they hire for this job, it's going to be because they didn't get another job that they wanted, right? I don't think this is on necessarily anyone's list. The only saving grace, the reason I have this team at 7 instead of 8 is because of Bryce Young. Someone will look at that and say, hey, that's a quarterback I can go work with. And the team I have at 8 is the Las Vegas Raiders.
Okay.
And the reason I have them at 8 is because they have no quarterback. Jimmy Garoppolo is a shell of himself, clearly not as good as not as good as he was with Kyle Shanahan. Aiden O'Connell is a
We're not
no
sure.
at best. Yeah. And then their draft position, right? They're not in a key spot where they're going to get, one of these better guys. And I didn't even have that pulled up. I meant to have it pulled up, but they're definitely not getting one of the top 3 guys, and they'd be lucky to maybe get the 4th guy, right?
Yeah.
And That's just not a spot you necessarily want to be in a draft. And then you look at the roster. I don't think there's any way that Devontae Adams is on this roster next year, right? He's going to want out, and he's going to want a chance to go compete for a championship, right?
Yeah. He's
There's
going to have to be severely impressed with what they do this offseason to not be
not
on the way
one
out the
out.
door. Right.
And
Yeah.
I
So,
think, and the other part of that job too that makes it so tough is in the way Antonio Pierce has coached this team. If you don't come in and immediately have success, it's going to be looked as a failure, right? Like it's not going to be looked upon with great because he's done a great job. And honestly, I think he deserves this job at this point.
yeah, I would agree. Like, unless they can lure a big fish somehow, which I don't see happening. And truthfully, when I say big fish, I mean
Harbaugh.
guys who have done it at that level or Ben Johnson, truthfully. Like Ben Johnson, Jim Harbaugh, Brian Flores. Like it's gotta be up there. If not, Antonio Pierce is a guy. And truthfully, I don't think it's a bad idea to just go with Antonio Pierce at the gate. We've seen this before. They fired Gruden. The interim head coach did a really good job. They're like, you know what? No, we're going to go shell out another large contract for Josh McDaniels, fire him. Interim coach does well. Don't you literally went through this 2 years ago. Just keep the interim guy that the locker room likes
Yeah.
and just play it simple, play it cheaper. You're not going to have to, you cannot afford to pay another 10-year contract out to one of these other guys.
And I guess we didn't really talk about who we'd want for Carolina's head coaching job. For me, it's a guy who's struggled to get a job. I think Eric Bieniemy is the guy that I go. If Eric Bieniemy says yes, like that's the guy I go get because
Fair,
he
yeah.
made Sam Howell. Sam Howell looked productive at the early stages of this season. Looked really good.
I think he still finished top 10 in passing yards too.
Yeah, and they were trying to bench him by the end of the season, right? Like that's the crazy part is by the end it got ugly. So if I'm Carolina, I'm doing everything I can to just get a guy like Eric Bieniemy, and it's easy for us to sit here and be like, well, Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson's not taking this job. There's
I
just
wouldn't
like
touch it.
Ben Johnson's going to get a better job than this one. So like, why would he even think about the Carolina? Like, I just don't think it's in the realm of what they're going to get.
Yeah.
They need an offensive coach, right? Like there's just no doubt in my mind that that's what they need. And that's why you get a guy who Eric Bieniemy's wanted to be a head coach for a long time, probably has deserved a chance by now. And if he doesn't get one this cycle, I think if Carolina comes knocking, he's not going to say no at this point. And
Yeah,
that's
I
the kind of
agree.
guy they need in a bad, no offense to Eric Bieniemy, but it is what it is.
Yeah, Ben Johnson going there is like the Raiders mocking themselves Caleb Williams at 7. It's
You're
not
right.
going to happen.
Yeah,
Why are
exactly.
do not plan on this because there is a 0 to 1% chance of it happening, right?
Right.
So I think that's a damn good pick. You're sitting here like, who did you want? I'm like, fucking whatever sucker takes it. Like that's like I don't know who would want that. The enemy. That's a really good pick, honestly. And lucky for you, the number 7 on my list is the Raiders. So we can just sit here and we can talk about.
I figured we'd be pretty close on the Raiders, but yeah, and I think we both want Pierce to get that job. I think he's done enough there that I would give it to him. And honestly, I'm becoming more of a fan of former players being a head coach, right? We're seeing that turn of like that's becoming really successful.
Yep.
And I wouldn't fight it with a guy like Antonio Pierce.
Yeah.
Who did you have as your number 6 job? I think we'll be on sync here. I'm pretty sure.
This is I don't know if we are because this is where I have the team and I think I have them a little too low. I have the Seattle Seahawks at 6 on my list.
Too low. Yeah.
Yeah, like I was thinking they
Close,
probably
but
should
a little low, but
they should probably land above, maybe Tennessee, but I'll stick with the list. It's what I have them at, and I'll try to justify why I had them so low. So the reason I had Seattle at 6, I was trying to look at 3 things to rank these teams, right? Your quarterback / your ability to get one, right? Your draft position, all these things. Your cap situation / how your roster is constructed, and then your ownership and GM. They're doing pretty well. I like their ownership. I like the GM. It's a very stable organization. Not a lot of headlines come from above the head coach level. I'm okay with that. They don't have a lot of cap space. I think they're 7th among the teams that we're going to talk about here. And also, as far as quarterbacks go, I think they're probably dead last on this list because they're in the same spot, really close to the same spot as Vegas is, except they don't have a good draft pick to even try. You can't even hope for a quarterback to fall to Seattle at where they're sitting.
Yeah, Seattle's more in the 2nd round quarterback, maybe Bo Nix, JJ McCarthy. I don't even think JJ McCarthy's a 2nd rounder at this point, but I think they're more in that class of quarterback than they are a 1st round guy.
Yeah,
I mean,
their
unless
hope
somebody
is Penix
slides.
is there If Penix
Yeah.
is there in the first, I think they might, just because it's a Washington, keep him
Yeah.
close to home. At least if nothing else, that's a marketing move, and I like Penix, so that might be there. Like I said, I do think I have him a little low, but again, they don't really have a quarterback for the future and not a great spot to get one. And ultimately, when you look at all these things that we're talking about, that's the
Yeah.
most important part of this pie.
So I said like, wow, way too low. I have him at 5, right? So I have him one spot ahead of, like, I don't actually think it's that low. This is a team that, like, when I initially did it, I was like, oh man, this might be the second or third best job. And then I was like, more I thought about it, I was like, actually, no, it's not. It's definitely more of a
Yeah.
middle of the road job. I mean, I wouldn't have fired Pete Carroll if I'm being honest with you. This is another
Yeah,
one that I was
I
just
agree.
like, I didn't think the timing made very much sense.
I would have fired him last year when we had or 2 years ago, we had all the Russell
Oh,
Wilson drama.
yeah, two
We
years ago
talked
you had
about
it,
it.
but they made the playoffs last year, right? And they were competing for a playoff spot again this year. So
In
I
one of the
don't,
tougher divisions in football.
yeah, probably, yeah, one of the tougher ones, not the hardest, but definitely one of the harder ones. So I didn't think this move made a ton of sense. Like I mean, I don't think the way that they sent Pete Carroll out was very fair to him.
No.
14 years there as their head coach, a Super Bowl ring. Um, it's different than it is with Belichick. That's what I'm kind of going to leave it at. We'll obviously dive into that one a little deeper, but
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have let him go. And honestly, I think Pete could keep coaching. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for Pete to maybe coach somewhere else. As far as candidates I like for this job, um, probably Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn makes the most sense to me. Um, it is. I mean, he came out of Seattle right when he went to Atlanta, so I think Dan Quinn. I don't know if Dan Quinn takes it though. That's the more interesting thing to me.
So I'm going to disagree with you fully, actually. As I agree with everything you said, 100%. If you're going to move on from Pete Carroll, we have to go the opposite direction. Don't
Right.
fire Pete Carroll and then bring in a guy that's well, he's going to do it like Pete did. Why not just keep Pete Carroll then, right?
Right.
So
Yeah,
like
that's
Dan
true.
Quinn's a good fit, not a bad coach. He's had a damn good year, 2-3 years in Dallas. But like I think like swing for the fences, go Ben Johnson. Like I mean, are you the most attractive job out there? No,
No.
but I don't think they're the worst. And I think ownership and general manager, like that stuff matters, and they're pretty solid on that stuff. So again, the quarterback situation may not be great, but I think there's a sales pitch there to get a bigger fish into Seattle.
Yeah.
um
I this is honestly one that I look at and I could see if Mike Vrabel wants to, like if Mike Vrabel, let's say Mike Vrabel doesn't get whatever job he thinks is the most valuable,
yeah,
I think this is one he could take, right? Like
this is a
this is
very good consolation prize, I think.
yeah, this is the kind of the opposite of what Tennessee was. Tennessee is an unstable, their GM is kind of a mess, right? Like that whole situation, like this franchise is stability, right? Pete Carroll was
Yeah,
there for 14 years. They have done nothing. Like, I mean, they have some misses, but they hit a lot of studs, right? Like, this is a team that every time you blink, you're like, man, what they go from DK to Tyler, and then how'd they end up with JSN, and then
there's
Kenneth
talent.
Walker is like a high end running back in the league, and then you're like, how do they keep doing this? Like, how do they keep finding guys? Um, so I could see a Mike Vrabel here. I don't see like a John Harbaugh ending up here personally,
Yeah.
but a Mike Vrabel, somebody who likes that style of ownership, I could see wanting to come here.
Yeah, this is me. This is like the big fish that misses out on the job he wants, and it's like, all right, well, at least this ownership, this franchise is stable. This is okay with me. Like
Yeah,
that's what this is to me.
yeah.
So,
All right.
who'd you have at 6?
I had Tennessee Titans at 6.
I had
And
them at 5.
5. Yeah.
So,
So I think we've been pretty close on par, just slightly different list. This is really tricky. Like the only thing I don't like, the reason I have Seattle above them is the stability of Seattle.
that's fair.
This team is just like the only thing they got going for them is they have some money. Like that's about it. They have the third most cap space going into the offseason. Not really a great draft position. 7, you might be able to get a guy. Ryan Tannehill is a free agent. Derrick Henry's a free agent. So it is a complete overhaul, but it's you know, every time this team gets talent, it can't retain it, right? Like Derrick Henry has been the only one who's been truly stable through it. I mean, they get an AJ Brown and they let him go for too little. Like, you look back at that trade and it's a bad trade. It truly
Yeah,
is.
yeah. Teams have a bad habit of doing that, especially with receivers, where you undervalue them just because you're not using them, and then they go somewhere else. They're top 5 guys. So I was like, almost you put a quarterback behind there, it's almost like the receiver
Yeah.
plays a lot better. Weird how that works.
I don't love organizations that they didn't fire their GM. I don't think, did they?
I don't think they did either. And again,
Yeah.
we've talked about that's a red flag for us most of the time.
Yeah.
That's honestly like that tells you something about the Raiders and their ownership and where their roster's at. That they are one. I think it's just them and the Chargers, if I remember right, that fired both.
Yeah.
And the Chargers are way up the list, and the Raiders are way down.
I mean, technically the Patriots fired both because it
True.
was one person.
True.
Or mutually parted ways. Yeah, whatever you want to say, mutually parted ways. But technically they got rid of both because it was one human being.
True. Very true.
The Patriots probably have the most to replace out of any team because they're going to have to build the front office staff because one guy did it for so long. They have like very little assistant coaching staff on the defense because Belichick did it. So it's like that you're replacing, like, it's actually replacing like 12 people when you
the thing is, you got a guy in house that was a GM and a coach at this level already. So just Billy B, welcome back.
Hey guys, Bill O'Brien is stepping down as our offensive coordinator to become our general manager, suckers.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Can you imagine, like, everybody in New England's like, oh, he's out his OC. And they're like, introducing our new GM and head coach, Bill O'Brien. You're like,
Bill
all right,
O'Brien.
well, burn the city down. Gillette's and ashes.
That's too funny. Who do you? Tennessee's one of those weird ones. I don't even know where they go at this point. Like, this is just such a weird. Nobody jumps off the page at me, as like, oh yeah, like this is a great fit. Go ahead.
I think we can also agree that this is probably the worst of all the firings. Like, if I look at all these, like, out of these 8 teams, if I could revert the decision by myself, this is the mistake. You do not fire good head coaches when you have one, right? Unless it's a Bill Belichick, right? There's external circumstances to Belichick and Carroll. Mike Vrabel, and what's our golden rule when it comes to head coaches? If a guy gets hired in the same cycle, you made a mistake by firing him. And Mike Vrabel will be a head coach at the NFL level next year.
Okay, so not only, like, you didn't always make a mistake just because he got hired in the same cycle. Can you get someone better? Like, true. I truly think that's the better question is like, okay, are we going to end up with a better head coach than Mike Vrabel? I think Tennessee's odds of coming out with a better head coach than Mike Vrabel are like 15 to 10%.
Yeah.
Like,
are there better candidates? Yeah. Are you going to get them? No.
and I honestly, I think it's more of a wild card too of, like, it's a bigger gamble. They're not going to get an established guy, right? Like, I don't think a Pete Carroll is going to end up here or something like that. I truly, I think it's going to be a younger guy who's kind of unproven, and it's going to be interesting to see. I think, honestly, the guy I see taking over this job is Kellen Mond.
Kellen Moore.
I think or did I say Kellen Mond? God, I always do that.
Oh, it's that one name. That one name always gets you.
I don't know why. I think it ends up being Kellen Moore. Again, he's a similar situation to Bieniemy where there's always talks like, oh yeah, he's going to be an NFL head coach someday. He's going to be an NFL head coach. And the opportunity just hasn't come where he gets offered a job. Mm-hmm. And I think Tennessee might be in a spot where they have to say, like, listen, hey, we'll give you a shot. And, and it could be flipped, right? It could be Kellen Moore and Eric Bieniemy go opposite teams here. But I think it's going to either have to be a younger guy, not a Ben Johnson, right? A younger guy who's on somebody's, like, maybe on their radar, or it's going to be a guy who's been in the head coaching talks for a while, just hasn't been able to get an offer. So
yeah, I'm like, honest to God, if Vegas goes elsewhere, I don't think it's crazy for Tennessee to call Antonio Pierce. Like, I mean, you've seen him do well with a scrappy team like that. Makes sense, promoting from within. Or I think, because I think Kellen Moore took the Chargers OC job in hopes that he would be next in line for head coaches. And then the ownership was like, wait a second, we can get somebody way better than this. Like,
well, I mean, to be fair, I mean, one, no one would have ever guessed. Like everyone thought there was going to be a lot of job openings, right? But
Yeah.
no one thought there would be this many good head coaches available, right?
This
Like
is I was talking to somebody about that. This is probably the most talented head coaching pool we've ever had, I think. Definitely
a,
in recent history.
of previous head coaches, and then even the guys who are coming up to get a shot. Like Eric Bieniemy has deserved a shot for a while, right? Like we've talked about some of these guys that have like definitely deserved a shot, and then you go, oh yeah, Mike Vrabel's available, Bill Belichick's available, Pete Carroll still might want to coach, and you're just like, damn, that's a pretty good list right there. Like
Yeah,
that's
there's a
a
pool.
yeah, there's some guys out there. Jim Harbaugh is probably going to be available, and I mean, and Jim Harbaugh is probably the number one candidate available.
Yeah, I would agree.
So, all right, where are we at? Number 4 now? Is
Yeah,
that
we're
right?
up to four
Yeah,
because
we're up to
we've
4.
flip flopped on the first
Yeah.
four so far.
Who's your 4?
I have the Atlanta Falcons at my 4 spot here.
Yeah,
Where'd
I
you
have
is this where
no. I have this is where I got the list got weird for me.
Okay.
And it got a little tough. I have the Atlanta Falcons at 2. Um,
Okay. All right.
and I mean, you want me to dive into it? I don't want to jump you
Yeah,
here.
I mean, I can run you through real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
So again, ownership wise, like I like Arthur Blank. I think the way like he was given, he's not a guy that's going to rush to fire you, right? He
No, no.
gave Arthur Smith plenty of chances to prove
He
that he
gave
was the
Dan Quinn a
guy.
lot of time too.
Yeah. As far as the quarterback situation goes, not a fan of who we have on the roster. It's not a great draft position, right? They're what 6 or 7? They're at 8, right behind
They're 8.
Tennessee.
8, come on.
So a little bit worse than where Tennessee's at as far as that situation goes, and their cap space isn't great. But the thing that pushed them over Tennessee in my mind to put them at the 4 spot was 3 years. The last 3 years, they have spent top 10 picks on dynamite offensive prospects.
Yeah.
Bijan Robinson last year, Drake London the year before, Kyle Pitts the year before that. There's talent here. There's talent on the defensive side. And I think also, as much as there's not a quarterback and they may not be in a great draft spot for him, this is probably, I think, the number one trade / free agency destination for a quarterback this offseason because of those 3 guys that they've taken in the top 10 the last 3 years.
And honestly, okay, so this is why I had them at 2. I agree with a lot of what you said. The main reason I have them at 2, I think they are lead candidates to get Ben Johnson or Bill Belichick, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, if they want Pete Carroll, I think Pete Carroll is also is in their top 3. That's the main reason I have them at 2. I think they're going to get one of the top 3 candidates available without question. This is a team that has a lot of talent. The defense is played really, really, really well this year, probably better than most people thought.
Oh, God.
And they're really like their offensive struggles are just, it amazes me that there's offensive struggles, right? It's all quarterback based. So this is a team that could go out and probably get a veteran. Like, honestly, I think if you put Gardner Minshew on this team, they probably win 10 games, right?
Yeah. And you got to think of the guys that are coming available, right? Kirk Cousins is going to be available. Justin Fields, depending on how the first pick goes.
Yeah.
The Commanders, if they decide to move off Sam Howell, I don't think is a terrible guy to look at as an ad later on. Russell Wilson's a free agent. So
and this is a team more so than like Tennessee. We're saying they're behind Tennessee. Tennessee, I wouldn't want them to move up to get a quarterback because they're not a quarterback away. Yeah. That's a team that needs multiple pieces. If Atlanta said, oh, hey, we're going to bundle, 8, this year's second and next year's first, and we're going to try to get, we're going to trade with Chicago and do, a big package to get up there, I wouldn't be upset about it. And even if you had to give away, I'm trying to think, they're not going to give up probably Drake London, but if they have to throw in a Matt Collins and something else, like Tyler Algier, I mean, he's a good running back too. He's like, he's their second or third running back on that team. But, that's a team that I would love to go up and get. Like, somebody wants down, they should be one of the teams looking to go up. Because you add a quarterback to the situation and it's really good. It's not a full rebuild. This is a team that you have a really, Jesse Bates is their safety. You have AJ Terrell on the defensive side, right? And it sounds so crazy, but I love Bill Belichick for this job. I think this is the job that Bill Belichick takes if they want him. I truly think it is.
I hate it
because Bill Belichick does what he fixes any defense, right? He can
Yep.
get production out of anyone on the defensive side of the ball. So
Yep.
that defense is
And
already good. He's going to take them from, a top half of the league defense to probably a top 10 defense. And then he brings along Josh McDaniels. They go get a quarterback, and this team's really competitive. Like, it's just that simple. It
the
really is.
reason
It's crazy to say, but it is. Like, McDaniels could take all those weapons and actually get production out of them.
and in that division, it's Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels lands there. I don't care who the quarterback is. They're probably winning that division next year.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think there's a shot that anybody is able to win that division at that point.
Imagine
And
Baker becomes available and they just put Baker on that team, or they trade
yeah.
for Justin Fields. Like, there's some easy solutions here.
Yeah, and the reason I say I hated it, well, like you said, Bill fixes any defense that comes, and what has he kind of struggled at on the other side? Putting explosive playmakers into his offense.
And his
Guess
team's
what?
full of it.
They
It's
just
there.
spent 3 first-round picks on him. Like, now, granted, you're going to have to navigate the waters of re-signing those guys. It's like Kyle Pitts' contract's going to come up next year.
But they're not. Like, this is a team that Belichick's going to be there for 3 or 4 years. So,
Yeah.
like maybe he's going to have to worry about Kyle Pitts and maybe Drake Lunt. But, like, that's a team that's going to get, like,
he's not going to worry about it.
he's not worried about it because he's not going to be there. This is a team that looks at it and says, okay, if we sign Bill Belichick, we're going all in. We're pushing our chips to the center and going all in. And if we get a Ben Johnson, we can play a little slower. You know what I mean? He's going to be able to make this offense dynamic. So,
God, that's terrifying.
That's why I have the Falcons at 2. I just think they have positioned themselves in a way where they're going to get somebody really good.
I don't blame you. Yeah, it's not bad at all.
Who do you like as there? You haven't come out and said, like, hey, this is a bad hire.
Bill is a slam dunk. Like, I didn't even think about it. Honestly, I haven't thought about anywhere about like where Bill would go because Zach asked me today, they're like, oh, do you think like he's going to coach again? And I was like, he is 26 wins or 28 wins away from Don Shula's all-time record, and he wants it. Like, he's a football historian. He wants to be that guy.
He's going to coach. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind. As long as he gets a job, like, he's not going to take a Commander's job. He's not going to take a Tennessee. He's going to take a team that he can come out and win.
Yeah, I think he takes 2 jobs, and it's LA or it's the Falcons, truthfully. Like,
and we'll talk more about Bill in a second because I have some theories too of why Belichick might wait. But what are we at? Who's your number 3 team?
This is where I have the Commanders at. It's number 3. Okay.
I had the Commanders at 4, so okay. I don't think you're far off.
So for the Commanders, what this comes down to, again, the ownership, obviously a whole hell of a lot better, right? Dan Snyder's still here. This team is probably at 6 or 7, right?
Yeah.
So shoot him down the list. But new ownership, so there's not a lot of stability and trust there yet. So they're not high on that list either. But number 2 overall pick, Sam Howell in-house. The enemy's in-house if they want to just bring him up, and they have the number 1 cap space of all the 8 teams that we're sitting here talking about, right? So, and I don't think their roster is that bad, truthfully. Like, are they a piece away? Probably not, but I think if they have an A to A plus offseason, I think this team is in the playoffs next year, and I think they are very close to being. I think they're a piece away after a good offseason.
And honestly, I don't even view Sam Howell as their quarterback going forward. I think with the 3rd pick, they're going to take a quarterback more than likely, or the 2nd pick, excuse me. Mm-hmm. They're going to take a quarterback just because their hands forced, right? Like, they're in too good of a spot to not take a quarterback.
Yeah.
Is really what that comes down to. I thought Ron Rivera, probably it was time for him to go. It was a disappointing season. I don't think that was a bad fire.
They gave Ron plenty of chances.
Yeah.
A lot of people were calling for it a year or so ago, and I was like, nah, he's gonna. No, we were wrong. It's time.
The coach I actually really like for this job is John Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh. Gosh, man, what is me in names? I think this is his number 1 choice.
Really?
Colin Cowherd's talked a lot about this, and I never would have thought about it. He's a big family guy. His parents live with him in Ann Arbor. He could move his family out there. They'd be between Baltimore and Washington.
It's right there.
I'm like, that's really good. It's in the NFC. He doesn't have to play against his brother, where if he took the Chargers job, he'd probably have to play against his brother quite a bit. And 2, there's flexibility here, right? He can take, he's going to know out of any of these head coaches, he's going to know which college quarterback is going to be the most successful at the next level out of anyone right now, right? Like, he has played against Michael Penix Jr. He is I don't think he's played against Jaden Daniels, but he's watched these guys, understands the environments they go through, the defenses. That he's going to know their weaknesses. He's going to know their strong points. He's going to know who he wants, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're in a really good spot to get the guy that he wants. So
Yeah.
I think it makes too much sense when you start like piece. You're like, man, like a lot of money, so he can get the kind of players because he likes to play football a certain way. He likes to
Mm-hmm.
play hard, tough nose, run first defense or offense.
Yeah.
And they've got the money to go get guys to make the offensive line better, to make the defense the way he wants it, to get the quarterback he wants.
And
There's
draft
a
Blake Corum in the second round and call it a fucking day is what they could do. Like
yeah,
the thing, yeah, and that's really good thought process. I didn't even think about that. I like them a lot because of the money and where they're at with the quarterback situation. And I get it. As much as we're talking about the slam dunk, you got to take a QB. Man, if somebody like Sam Howell and you could take Marvin Harrison and pair him next to Terry McLaurin, that's fucking terrifying. I do not want to be stuck guarding either one of those guys on a Sunday afternoon. So there's so many possibilities with this draft. I'm so excited to get closer so we can finally have a picture. Because as of right now, I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. and three quarterbacks in any certain order, 1 through 4, could happen in my opinion. Like,
yeah,
and I think Joe Alt, the tackle out of Notre Dame, slips in there too. I have no idea what's going to happen with this draft, but the beauty of it is the Commanders have free will at 2, outside of Caleb Williams or somebody trading up. So
yeah. So it'll be really interesting. I think that job is probably better looking than a lot of people think it is. Just off the cuff, you just say the Commanders, like, ugh. I mean, the division's a little tough, right? Like, there's that aspect. You're going to have to go up against the Cowboys and the Eagles, but the team has the flexibility and the assets to do it if they were going to want to do it.
if they
So
get the right guy at the helm, yeah.
yeah. All right, who is number 2 for you?
It's one of the 2 teams we have talked about. It'd be the New England Patriots at my 2 spot. Is this who you had at 3? I'm assuming.
That's who I had at 3. Uh, again, it's a really interesting team. They've got quite a bit of cap space, third most in the league, only behind Chicago. Or not, looking at the wrong list here. They have the fourth most behind the Commanders, Texans, Titans, and and then it's the Patriots. Third overall pick. Obviously, a really, really patient owner. Like we talked about, it's a clean house job. So
Stable owner.
yes, there's going to be a lot of good stability. This defense is talented, right? Like this defense is good. Now, it's easy to say that when Bill Belichick's coaching it. Is the defense actually good without Bill?
Yeah.
I mean, Matthew Judon's good. Christian Gonzalez is good. There's some pieces there. The other thing that I think makes this job so interesting is a lot of the old guard is gone. Julian Edelman's gone. Matthew Slater leaving. You know what I mean? It is going to be a clean. There isn't going to be many guys who remember winning Super Bowls there at this point.
Which I think is a good thing.
It is. I think it makes it more attractive a job because it's not, oh, this guy, I'm not used to it being this. Like, I think that's out of the locker room for the most part. Far as Belichick goes, I genuinely, my belief is, and it hasn't clearly come out of why they ended up mutually parting ways. My opinion is Robert Kraft said, listen, if we're going to go forward in this relationship, this is how we're going to go forward with it, right? We're going to do, we're going to get a GM in here. We're going to fire Bill O'Brien. We're going to get a defense. Like, we're going to start building some more structure around you to help you. And I think Belichick said, I don't think, that's how I think we're going to fix these problems and win. I very rarely believe in mutually parting ways. I think this might have been one of the more truer cases of it, right? You have a coach who's been there for 24 seasons and has been the general manager for a majority of that. And now has said, okay, listen, the season didn't go well. All of the control you had, we're going to reel back in on some of that.
Yeah.
And maybe Belichick was willing to give some and maybe not as much as the Kraft family wanted. And they said, this is how it is. And, if you're not okay with that, we got to go a different direction. And I don't think Belichick's done coaching. And I don't think they went the trade route for a major reason here, is because I think New England has their eye on a particular candidate, and I think they have to act quickly if they want to get him. And so I don't think it was mutually beneficial for Bill to have to wait around for the trade, and I don't think it was beneficial for the Patriots to wait around for the trade. Do you have any other thoughts on why this job's attractive, not attractive?
No, I mean, stable as ownership goes, right? The number 3 overall pick. You have a small trade chip in Mac Jones, right? Go get a 4th rounder back, whatever.
Yeah,
There's some talent here, right? The offense needs some work, but it's
yeah,
one of those jobs where it's a stable thing and you get to pick your quarterback. I mean, what more could you truthfully ask? And they have cap space. Like,
yeah.
it truly just lines up that way. That's why they're here, just by the numbers of it.
Um,
Who's the
I
candidate?
it's clear and obvious, right? I love Gerard Mayo. I thought he was the guy in waiting for years. I think he probably would have been the guy if this guy doesn't come available. It's Mike Vrabel.
Yeah.
How do you not bring Mike Vrabel in as your head coach? I think this is like we said, right? Like, does your coach get hired in the same cycle? Can you bring in a better guy? I think Belichick gets hired this cycle, and I think if it's not Mike Vrabel, I think it's a failure. I genuinely believe that. I think you made a mistake if it's not. If since Mike is available and you don't bring him in, it's genuinely they've messed up.
Yeah, that's
Ma-
fair.
Massive mistake. Like I love Gerard Mayo, and I think he probably deserves a shot. He'll get interviewed. It can't be. It can't. You cannot hire Gerard Mayo if Mike Vrabel's available. He is a very similar guy in the aspect, but the difference is one of those guys has been to an AFC Championship game. One of those guys took an okay roster and made it to the playoffs 4 years, right?
Ryan
Like
Tannehill.
he took Ryan Tannehill to the playoffs. It's just,
They knocked out the number 1 seed in 2019.
and the good news is his offensive coordinator is available too, so you could just bring him right in with it. So
Yeah.
I see the situation I see in my mind. Mike Vrabel gets the head coach. And then he keeps Mayo on the staff, gives him actual defensive coordinator responsibilities. Right, Steve Belichick's gone. Hey, Gerard, this is your defense. You are the guy, the play caller on defense. This is no longer Bill's team, no longer Bill's defense. It's yours, right? That's going to be the selling point when they bring Mike in, and whoever Mike wants to bring in as his offensive coordinator, I think is his call.
Yeah.
If he wants it to be Arthur Smith, I'm cool with that.
That'd be a damn good
Art
pick.
he was OC there, right? I'm not making that up.
Who?
Arthur Smith, right?
OC where?
In Tennessee. No?
Maybe? No, I think you're right. I think you
Yeah,
are right. Yeah.
because Matt LaFleur got hired away to Green Bay, and then Arthur Smith got hired away to Atlanta.
Yeah.
So,
I think you're right.
um, I mean, that's my. I mean, I genuinely, even like Jim Harbaugh's not taking this job. Pete Carroll's not taking this job.
No.
Like this is a job that
What a
makes too
weird
much
day.
sense.
Pete Carroll comes over to coach the Patriots. Wouldn't that be the hell's frozen?
It'd be
over?
odd, but I don't think that's a team Pete wants to coach. Genuinely.
Yeah, I think for Vrabes, like this is like I agree. That's a good point, right? The whole rushing part of it, right? That's the dead ringer. I think it's Vrabel, and I like Mayo too. Should he be the next in line? Maybe. Truthfully, the number 2 candidate to me, and the only reason I know it's going to be the reason why you bring it up and stink on the idea is the young quarterback stuff. But Brian Flores is the other guy that's up here. I think he has got to be a name that is heavy in talks this year. Any team that's got a veteran quarterback, and I know that, New England might not be that team, but say they spend the cap space on some skill guys, they bring in Kirk Cousins, you bring in Brian
Yeah.
Flores, you call it good, right? I mean, I wouldn't be super mad at that idea either, but I do agree that you have to put the house in front of Vrabel and be like, hey, man,
Yeah.
what more do you want?
Right. Like
Here's a blank check. Come coach my football team.
we were kind of like wishful thinking when we talked about Vrabel the first time. Like it was kind of like, yeah, like it'd be cool if he was
It'd be
available.
nice if he was available.
He's available. So
He's
like
available.
like Brian Flores, yeah, I think deserves some consideration. Do I think Josh McDaniels really deserves consideration?
No.
Not really. He'll probably get an interview. Bill O'Brien, I mean, the offense didn't get better with him there, so I think he's got to move on as well. Like Brian Flores is a nice condolence prize. He's not Mike Vrabel. Like that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, and the thing that really stinks for McDaniels is if he doesn't get itchy for that second job, he's probably the head coach here.
Oh, 100%.
They probably just promote McDaniels up if Vegas never happens.
I mean, and it also could have been a situation where Belichick's not getting fired right now either. Like it
True.
might
The
like
offense could have been somewhat decent.
yeah, like Mac Jones has only been good with Josh McDaniels as offensive coordinator. So
Yep.
and I think because of that, I mean,
Send him to Atlanta.
yeah,
Bill, Mac Jones, Josh McDaniels, send him to Atlanta.
could you imagine? That'd be wild.
That'd be
I
fucking
think
hilarious.
and this might also sound crazy. If they don't get a quarterback they like at 7 and Justin Fields isn't available for trade, I genuinely think Russell Wilson could end up in Atlanta with Bill and Josh McDaniels. I don't think
Wow.
that's an insane
It
outcome.
is going to be such a wild offseason.
It's going to be the wild, wild blast. I don't think Kurt ends up anywhere but Minnesota personally.
I
But
don't think so either. But
you never know. But yeah, I'm a Vrabel or bust guy at this point. I mean, Bill Belichick's the greatest head coach of all time, without question, right? Just as Nick's like we've had 3 legends call it quits in the last 2 days or get
24
fired or
hours.
whatever. Yeah, 24 hours, right? And 2 of those guys are in the top 3 of greatest football coaches of all time. Not NFL, like Belichick's the greatest football coach ever, and Nick Saban's probably number 2 right behind him, right? Like
Yep.
they're both top 5 without question. I mean,
100%.
so it is wild. But the other thing with Belichick too is don't be surprised if he doesn't sign right away. I think he will wait until after the wild card round and see. Does Dallas call it quits with Mike McCarthy? Do the Eagles fire Nick Sirianni after how bad this season's been a mess,
No
right?
way.
Do the Eagles look and go, "Hey, Nick Sirianni's been bad. Do we call it quits and maybe Belichick comes here?"
I think that'd be one of the most unfair firings. I think that might be more unfair than Vrabel, truthfully, not in the terms of Sirianni's better than Vrabel, but like they looked at Sirianni and like, hey, you have 2 new coordinators. Have fun. And then they lose and you're like, get the fuck out of here. But when you look at who's available, it's hard not to.
That's what it comes down to, right? Yeah. Like we always say, would Nick Sirianni get hired and can you get a better guy? Nick Sirianni would not get hired. And there's a lot of better guys, right? Like, do they go, man, Pete Carroll could probably coach this team to a Super Bowl?
Yeah. Like, and there are some teams that I think should have fired coaches that are going to regret not joining what this cycle is going to end up being. And we could talk about that, but we don't have time. So
we definitely don't have time. We're spending too much time on this. We're on number 1, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
Consensus number 1.
Yeah, it's got to be the Chargers, right? The biggest issue solved. Quarterback. It's you got a guy right there and he's in, right? So the number 1 problem that you're going to run into, there is no problem. He is the guy. So he's there. They're in a little bit of cap trouble. It is easily fixed. I think Derwin James gets cut. I think Khalil Mack gets cut. Some guys, I know, but they have to.
Cutting Derwin is going to be a tough one, but Khalil Mack is gone. I'd cut Joey Bosa before I cut Derwin James.
Wow. I mean, one of those 2 guys is probably getting cut.
Yeah.
Mike Williams' contract's probably getting restructured. You got a decently high pick too. You're not getting
one of those 2 guys. I'd cut one of their 2 receivers, top 2 receivers, truthfully.
Yeah,
and Khalil.
I'd probably keep Keenan Allen. You've got a top 5 pick. You got a shot at some talent. You're probably not getting Marvin Harrison Jr., but you might get Malik Neighbors. Is that who I'm thinking of?
Yeah, I was like Neighbors, or you could get the guy out of Washington. There's a lot of receiver talent in this class. The other thing here that I have issue with. So again, I was talking myself out of the Chargers being the 1 spot and be like, wow, the cap space, the rosters are not constructed super well. The issues are glaring. But at the end of the day, there's not a job that tops Justin Herbert and a new GM. They fired the GM as well, right? So you get a GM and a head coach coming in. You have Justin Herbert. That puts you at the 1 spot just about single-handedly. Cap situation, we've got to figure out some things roster-wise. What you said, they have pick 5?
Pick 5, yeah.
I think one of the receivers needs to go because their main issue with their offense right now, and you're like, Owen, Tim, Justin Herbert looked terrible this last year. Why? Brandon Staley affects the defense. Why does Justin Herbert look bad, right? Is he the guy? Because we haven't really seen it at the highest levels yet. I'll tell you why. They have 3 6'4" receivers that run 4.7 40s, and they have a horrible offensive line. If you don't have a guy that can get open quick and you have a bad offensive line, your offense is going to suck. That's the bottom line. Why they drafted Quentin Johnston, I'll never know. Other than I think that was one of the dumbest picks, in my opinion. I like Quentin Johnston. I think he would have been solid. I kind of want him in Baltimore. The point of a receiver room is to diversify, right? I want AJ Brown's my big physical guy. He can do whatever he wants. Devonta Smith's going to go over the top, unless you're really just going to overload, and you can't overload on physicality. Doesn't work at the receiver spot because you end up being slow a lot of the times.
Yeah.
So they have three guys that are slow and a bad offensive line, but pick five, you could go receiver. They could go tackle and shore up the other side across from Rashawn Slater. The options are open, but the Chargers are the best job, hands down. I think Jim Harbaugh, if the family route's not the way to go with the Commanders, I think go with the best job available, right? And truthfully, Jim Harbaugh can sit at Michigan and just keep winning football games until the team that he wants is available. Because, say he's deadlocked on, I want to go back to San Fran. You might have to wait a while, a really long while, but eventually something will happen. And maybe Philly comes open. That job, that's where Jim Harbaugh's going, right? That's not too far from Baltimore still.
I think it's a little quick to say Philly. I know that name's it's being thrown out there. Like it's definitely
I think it's crazy, but
just because of the names that are available. This is a team that I'm like, man, we got to fix the offense. Like I think you have to hone in on a Ben Johnson type. Like I don't think a Pete Carroll or Belichick really makes a ton of sense here, right? Like this is, and maybe it does in some ways and it doesn't in others, right? The offense has struggled. You got to go get an offensive guy at the end of the day.
You pair him with Justin Herbert, and you never have to worry about your OC getting hired out and it destroying your team because you have Kyle Shanahan, right?
And that's the only other thing that makes sense about like McDaniels is not probably getting another chance at this point.
Not a head coach. No.
Yeah, if you bring in Belichick, McDaniels is locked in, and he's a good OC, horrible head coach, good OC. So like that's a combo that I look at and say Belichick could probably fix this defense, and then Josh can come in and fix the offense, and it'd be an interesting team at the very least. But I would go after a Ben Johnson. I truly would. I think a young guy with Herbert makes a lot of sense too. They can kind of grow, develop. Yeah, it'd be a dynamite combo. But yeah, I do think this is the number one job without question, even with the cap space usage. But you got a top 5 pick. We're gonna keep rolling. We're gonna just do one episode today because
I love it.
We're so there. Deep. We're so deep in this one that it makes zero sense to back out of it and do two. It'd be just 2 really long episodes, so we're just gonna do one long one today.
Do one long one. We got the chapters working for our favor on YouTube. But before we dive into the next spot, we're talking about coaches, right? I want to give a shout out to my mom. Hooked me up with this nice Roquan Smith t-shirt that I'm repping right now. Nice. Also got to shout out Tim, the appropriate attire to talk about Bill Belichick today. He's got his short sleeve hoodie on, the Patriots logo on the front. Fantastic outfit choices today. But what's our next topic of choice here?
We're going to go game by game, give our predictions for the playoffs, and then we're going to wrap up with our bets at the very end. Oh yeah, someone probably didn't have bets ready because normally
scrambles to get his bets in. That's okay. We got time.
Yeah, we got time. We're going to talk about the games in the order that they're going to happen. So you're probably listening to this on a Friday. It probably won't come out until Friday afternoon is my guess. So sorry about that, but my computer setup's just a little bit slower. But yeah, so first game on the docket, we got the Browns versus the Texans. This one, is a simple case of I love what CJ Stroud has done. I love what DeMeco Ryans has done. This team is overperformed, truly. And whenever a team overperforms like this, I don't like them in the playoffs as much for a couple of reasons. One, Joe Flacco has the second most playoff wins out of any quarterback in this playoffs. Did you know that?
I didn't know that, but it doesn't surprise me.
The only guy ahead of him, Patrick Mahomes with 11. The closest guy
it's insane that Patty has already passed him up, truthfully. Yeah. But
you know who the closest guy to him is? I'm pretty sure it's Stafford with 4.
Wow.
The one Super Bowl run he had.
That's one playoff run right there. That's nuts.
We're talking a lack of playoff experience by a lot of these teams and a lot of these quarterbacks.
There's no Brady and Rodgers to carry that number up.
And you break this down. So you have a rookie QB, a rookie head coach in a playoff game that overperformed, right? A lot of people thought they'd be good. They didn't think they'd be a playoff team. And then on the other side, you have a veteran QB who's been there, done that. You have an absolute dominant defense, right? Probably, we talk about, who's got the best. I don't know how it's not Cleveland at this point. Like,
I think it's
well,
so tough to decide between the top four,
yeah,
truthfully.
it's really close, but man, Cleveland's defense is good. So I
Three of them
just
in the
think
AFC.
all of the factors. I understand Houston's at home. I just think all the factors to me point to a Texans win. What do you say?
I'm picking Cleveland as well. I would love Houston to win this game. I said this last week, and I still stand on it. I think Cleveland's probably the last team that I want to see. Definitely a divisional round. I would go out on a limb and possibly say as a Ravens fan that this Cleveland team is the last team I want to see of the six that are eligible to play Baltimore in the playoffs at all on the AFC side. Um, I'd love for Houston to win, but truthfully, and you're talking about overachieving. I mean, somebody's been overachieving the last 5 games of the season. It's been Joe Flacco. So
Yeah.
the route to this is if it's a close game, I think Houston has a chance. We've seen the game-winning drives or at the back-to-back Week 5, Week 6 magic. I know it was a while ago. CJ Stroud has proven he can get it done down the stretch, right? So unless Cleveland can come out and bottle them up, I think Houston has a shot. Or, and you talked about that, we brought this up last week, you did. Joe Flacco's played great. Cool. How long am I banking on a 37-year-old playing at this high of a level, you know?
But this is the game where I'm not even banking on. He doesn't even have to play at a high level. He probably has to play
Game
at
manage.
a game manager, right? Like he doesn't have to be the
Fair.
reason that they win this game. Like this is a game that they can win 17-10. And if you're asking me, hey, who's more likely to put up 17 points in this game? I'm probably going to take Cleveland this time. You
Yeah.
know,
And
it's more
I
situational than it is like I'm not saying Cleveland's coming out. I'm not saying it's going to be 42-14 or anything like that. I think
yeah.
it's close, but if you're saying in close games, who are you picking? I'm not picking the rookie quarterback and the rookie head coach to win a close playoff game. And they might.
It's
They could shock me, but it would be really really surprising to me.
I think I pick them if they have a chance to win it, right? Tie ball game, they get the ball back with 2 minutes left. Obviously, right? You're like, oh, I'll just take the guy that could go down and win it right then and there. But like, I think CJ Stroud has that in him. Against this defense, it's going to be insanely tough, right? I'm picking the Browns, but god damn it, I hope the Texans win because I don't want to have to play Cleveland in the
Yeah,
second round.
I
So
think they're all very very interesting. Um, Next game on the docket: Dolphins versus the Chiefs. Again, this one's I hate to oversimplify things, but some of these man are just core basics of why you pick it. It's gonna be 0 degrees in Kansas City on Sunday. I'm in
yeah,
Kansas City right now. It's supposed to start snowing tonight, and it's not supposed to stop till tomorrow night at like 9 p.m. And then it's gonna be like 0 and -8 on
yeah. I
Saturday.
was like, it's not that it's going to be zero. The high is zero.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Like,
gonna be in the
it's not the
negatives.
low. The low is -8. The
Yeah,
high is zero. It does not bode well for Miami.
no,
I think the AFC is a pretty boring side to pick. Truthfully, I was sitting here filling them out, and I was like, dude, we're gonna have the same pick on every game. I had to change my last two just because I was like, it's gonna be a real boring segment. If I'm like, yep, I agree with what you said there. But
yeah,
truthfully, we could sit here, and I think Tim has a really solid chance to go 6-0. I picked some upsets later on the NFC side just to give us some diversity, but
yeah,
man, I'll tell you what. If Mike McDaniel can go into a 0 degree Arrowhead Stadium, the loudest stadium in the NFL, in the worst weather this team has seen all year, and beat the Kansas City Chiefs, it does so much for that team's image. Now, granted, you don't get to go back to Hard Rock because you didn't beat Buffalo last week. So, and
yeah.
you would have avoided this, and you would have been playing Pittsburgh at home this week had you won. But too bad, right? Now, the challenge is on, right? You got to go to Arrowhead and win a game. But I think Kansas City gets this done. I think it's an ugly game. Um, and I'll say this, like this is probably if I had to pick a 17-10 game, this is it. Like Kansas City's offense hasn't looked good, but Miami is not going to be able to play that well in the cold, unfortunately. And Patrick Mahomes is probably the first time ever in his career, right? A couple weeks ago was against the Raiders. They had those two bad plays where they scored touchdowns on defense that cost them the game. This is one of those games where if Patrick Mahomes catches a turnover bug or throws a pick six, it might cost him the game. Truthfully, I think.
It's gonna be close, and this is another one that I don't think is gonna be a very high scoring game. I
Mm-mm.
just
Take the unders this week, folks.
And if Tyreek was healthy, you know, like 100% going into this game, I'd feel a little bit better, but I
Even
just,
then, I don't
yeah,
know.
it's going to be a tight one. Steelers versus Bills. I mean, man,
What are we talking about?
Ben, not Ben. Mason Rudolph versus Josh Allen. I mean, I don't need to say much more.
I
Like,
think that solves it. Yeah.
Pittsburgh making the playoffs this year was a fluke more than it was deserving.
It's not a fluke. It's a joke. Is what it is.
Yeah,
Truthfully.
how they snuck in is just like
Thanks, Jacksonville.
yeah, I don't. Jacksonville fumbled the bag there.
Fucking bitch.
But yeah, they just wow, man. This is one of those games that, like, I think Buffalo's -10 in this game last I looked, and I don't even know if that's enough. Like, I'm sure that line is going
That's
to
what
move
I'm looking at right now on DraftKings is minus
as
10 now.
-10. And I don't think that'll end up being the line. I think it's going to be significantly higher by as we get closer. Yeah, because it's just, if Buffalo loses this game, Sean McDermott's getting fired. And imagine that scenario. He gets fired, Bill Belichick comes on in and, like, comes into that team. Like, that's not a crazy scenario
for you. What a nightmare for you.
I wouldn't hate it. It'd only be for a couple years. We're gonna stink for the 2 or 3 years he'll be there. But
fair.
Yeah,
take
like
the cop out way out. We suck at it. Who cares?
Who cares? I'm not crying. You're crying. But yeah, like I truly, like, if they lose this game, like, they have no business this game being close, and McDermott needs to be fired. It's just simple.
Yeah, they're a 2 seed. It's a home game. As a Ravens fan, please, God, Pittsburgh, pull a little Mike Tomlin magic. Come on, because I'll tell you what, George Pickens and the guys were talking a lot of crap after taking down Tyler Huntley on the Ravens in Week 18. Like, they're posting celebration videos on Instagram. Come on. What are we doing?
Come on, guys. The Ravens are already on OBJ's yacht relaxing, okay? They're not even honed into playoffs.
We're gonna lose. We're gonna lose to Cleveland. I'm gonna die. No, I want, as much as Pittsburgh was 2 of our 4 losses this year, I would love to see him in the second round. It's not gonna happen. If Sean McDermott loses this game, I am convinced they will ask him to pack his desk and his office up before he leaves the building that night. Like,
yeah,
I know it's 10 p.m. and you just lost a horrible football game. You're crying at a press conference. Get your shit and get the F out of here and never come back. He is banned from the city of Buffalo if they lose this game.
That could be one of those games, like, the game ends, right, and you expect the head coach to come up, and the owner comes up and he goes, we just fired Sean McDermott. He's packing up his office right now. He won't be available to speak to the media tonight. I'll answer 2 questions, and that'll be it. Why'd you fire McDermott? Because we lost tonight. Thank you. Have a great night, everyone. Thanks. Appreciate your time. Thanks for coming out.
Why is Joe Brady answer the post-game press conference? This guy's just offensive coordinator 4 or 5 weeks ago. And they're like, oh, Sean just lost his job, actually. So here I am.
Sean's no longer with us. So
if he loses this game, dude, he might.
It might be the end. All right, let's jump over to the NFC side here. Little bit more interesting, in my opinion. I think this might be one of the closer games, actually. Packers versus Cowboys. Damn it. What?
Marcus Stroman just sided the Yankees. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Pete Alonso signed a 1-year deal with the Mets. Big whoop. 20 million. 20 million.
Welcome home.
But yeah, Cowboys versus Packers. I think this game's close. I do like the Cowboys at the end. I just don't think Green Bay has enough firepower to really try to compete with the Cowboys. Again, this is a team that I think has overperformed. I know some people had them as a playoff team. I think those people, were kind of blindly guessing. But Jordan Love has looked good. I just don't think he's going to look good enough to go out and beat the Cowboys at home in Dallas.
Yeah, this is a tough one. And dude, the listening to like Matty C and the Cowboys fans talk about this last week has been hilarious because the second the seating was set, just Cowboys fans are having nightmares all week, right? Did Dez catch it? Yeah, the Hail Mary from Rodgers. So many things have happened badly for the Dallas Cowboys against the Packers and in the playoffs to boot. Here's the thing, Dallas. You're at home. You're not at Lambeau. All those bad things that happened, they were on the road. Did you get the 1 seed? No. Yeah, you choked your way out of it. It's fine. This is at home. We're fine. I'm taking the Dallas Cowboys here. And I'll tell you this, if you're not a fan of the NFL, whatever it is, if you have friends that are Cowboys fans and they lose this game, please call them immediately because they are going to be in the worst way come Monday morning if the Packers win this game in Dallas. But I think they get it done. Like you said, Jordan Love, they played great. They play good football. They have a good history against the Dallas Cowboys in the playoffs. We're not in Lambeau. We're in Jerry's world. They'll take care of business.
Yeah, I just yeah, I think this one's. I'd be shocked if the Packers won, but I wouldn't be shocked. Actually, that's a lie. I think
I'd be surprised.
the spread at this game's at 7, and I honestly I think that's a little high.
I agree.
I think Green Bay is going to keep it interesting, but yeah, again, like we've talked about Sirianni, we've talked about Sean McDermott. This like Mike McCarthy might also be coaching for his job as well. So
yep. Nope. With the guys that are available, if he loses this game at home against the Packers, yeah, he's probably
it'll be tough for him to stay, and that job's desirable. Like they've got weapons on that team. So, but yeah, I think he's coaching for his life here. Next game we got, honestly, my pick for game of the week. I think this is going to be the closest in one of the more entertaining games. We got the Rams at the Lions. I'm taking the Rams here. I think Matthew. It's crazy to say that Detroit's in the playoffs, huh?
Did you flip on me?
No.
Okay, you had the lines written down. I was just...
Oh, I did. Nope. Definitely meant to take the Rams there. Sorry.
God damn it. It's okay. I'll play devil's advocate regardless. This is a toss up.
This game's really close. It's at ±3. It's right where it should be. +3 for the Rams. I like the Rams in this game. We've seen Dan Campbell make too many mistakes in crucial time. Like he has just not been great at the end of games. And I know McVay is good at the end of games, right? So this kind of comes down to, I believe more in McVay than I do Campbell. I think Stafford and Goff right now are similar. I would still take Stafford for a game over Goff.
I take Stafford because he has McVay, truthfully.
Yeah. So for me, it really comes down to the head coach advantage. That's why I'm leaning Rams. I didn't even realize I wrote Lions, but yeah, definitely I'm leaning Rams this game. Because it's funny that I wrote that, and then one of my bets is we'll definitely contradict that prediction later on.
It's all right. I can make a I think this is going to be probably game of the week football wise. It is 100% without a doubt game of the week story wise, right? And Detroit has went through a lot of cruel stuff in its franchise's history, right? Never made a Super Bowl. Calvin Johnson, Barry Sanders retire at 10 years into their career. A lot of heartbreaking stuff has happened to Detroit. This is the first playoff game they've had in 30 years. I couldn't even tell you the last time they had a home playoff game. If Matthew Stafford walks into Ford Field and beats them in a home playoff game, I've never felt more empathy for an NFL fan base than I would the Detroit Lions. Sorry, Dallas, you're going to get trumped if Matthew Stafford beats this Lions team on Sunday.
Do you know Laporte is not playing for the Detroit as well, correct?
I didn't know that. It's tough.
Yeah, Laporte. I think Laporte is out for that game. And that's part of why I'm more leaning. Oh, cat's
There's the feeder. Fed. There it is.
There's the feeder going off. It's 8:00. Yeah, I truly, for me, I think that's like a big factor. Is I'm pretty confident he's ruled out for that game.
That is,
he might play. Oh no, he's optimistic about playing. Okay.
I've heard that story before. He's questionable is what it's going to come down to. It's probably going to be a game time decision. And even if he plays, he's not going to be 100%.
Not 100%. And he's such a vital part of that offense. It scares me for him to not be in there in that game.
I'm not even thinking about that. I had wrote the Rams just because I wasn't trying to have the same 8 picks through, but I'll switch to the Lions here. I mean, this team is good, right? They're here for a reason, right? Ben Johnson is the most coveted first-time head coach this offseason for a reason, right? Jared Goff is at a career year for a reason. So they have played a lot of good football. The reason I had the Rams down is this is going to be a chess match. And
yeah,
Sean McVay, I think, can be a chess player on some days. I think he can fill in and play a good chess game. Dan Campbell is a football player. He's not a chess player, right? He's going to come out. He's going to punch you in the mouth. He's going to do your normal stuff. But when it comes down to it and it gets real tactical and this, that, and the other, I don't think Dan Campbell has it at this point.
Yeah, it's going to be the closest game, and that's why I think it's the game of the week here.
They are going to have to. There's just no way that I see them walking this game because it would have to be them shutting down the Rams offense. Not only is the Rams offense too good, their defense just isn't good enough to keep up, truthfully.
And we talk about being in stride at the right times. Like Puka Nacua comes off breaking the rookie receiving record. Cooper Kupp there. Cooper Kupp's healthy, playing well. Matthew Stafford's healthy and playing well. Aaron Donald is always a force to be reckoned with in playoff games. So, and this is a team that's been to a Super Bowl, and they have the experience. They've been there, done that. And for them, road games matter probably the least out of a lot of teams, right? For them, they sit here and they go, I mean, road games, home games, kind of almost the same thing for us for the most part. So,
for this one, they're going from a dome to a dome. Who cares?
Yeah. And I'm sure Ford Field's going to be hopping, but I mean, they play in a lot of stadiums that are hopping, and this is not that much different to them. Now, in my opinion, the hardest game to predict is the Eagles versus Buccaneers. I was very, very close to taking the Buccaneers in this game, like microscopically close. If Baker Mayfield is 90% healthy, 95% healthy, I'd probably take the Bucs in this game. He is very, very banged up right now, and he's going through it. It's going to be tough. I do think this game is really close. Like, I think this game, it's nuts to say, but I think like the way Philly has played the last couple weeks, their defense can't stop a nosebleed. And even if Baker hands it off to Rachaad White 20 times and they run some play action and Mike Evans catches one ball, like this game's going to be tight and down to the wire.
Yeah. I laughed there, and it doesn't sound crazy with what we've seen in the last 6 weeks. It's at the beginning of the year. If I was like, hey, you know that team that just made the Super Bowl, the Philadelphia Eagles? Yeah, they're going to be in a playoff game against Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers. You're like, firstly, stop. Mental asylum, you're insane. Secondly, the Bucs are going to have a chance. Just a chance. Not even going to win. Not going to make it close. Yeah. They have a chance at winning that game. You're like, you're fucking actually crazy.
And the game's going to be in Tampa Bay. You'd be like, what?
What are we? What? Hell froze over. That's what happened here. I'm going to take the Buccaneers in this game. And truthfully, what comes down to this is what we've seen in the last 6 weeks, right? The defense can't stop a nosebleed, and there is no more resilient player in the NFL currently than Baker Mayfield. Healthy, one leg, one arm, missing a rib. Who cares? Baker Mayfield is going to go out there and he's going to lay it all on the line because that's the type of player he is. Also, he's playing for another starting job, whether it's with them or someone else. His job is on the line, right?
I don't know if his job. I think he's gotten that job. I'd be shocked
in Tampa.
I would be.
I think that's another team that truthfully probably needed to fire their head coach with the amount of guys that are available this offseason. But there's so many. We didn't even get a chance to talk about like the parallels that are happening in all of these games, right? Deshaun gets traded from Houston to Cleveland. They play in the first round, right? We saw Goff and Stafford going back at it. We're seeing that happen. This one, you have to dig a little bit further to find it, but here it is for you. Remember the 11-0 Pittsburgh Steelers team, right? It started off great. They ended up horrible down the stretch.
They had like the worst offense or whatever, and
they lose in the first round of the playoffs. Here we go. The Philadelphia Eagles didn't start 11-0, right? But 10-1, very good start to the season. Have really fallen off in the last 6 weeks. You remember who sent Big Ben and the Patriots home in the offseason that year?
Big Ben home? No, I don't remember.
It'd be Baker Mayfield and the Cleveland Browns that sent him packing that year in the playoffs. Dang. So Baker Mayfield has a chance to send another Pennsylvania team that started strong and has fallen off in the last 6 weeks.
That one's a bit of a stretch.
It's a stretch. It's there.
A bit of a stretch.
And honestly, I'm not even fully confident that it was him that knocked him out of the playoffs this year. Now I'm somewhat remembering that Big Ben had to go on the road to KC and do it, and I think that's actually what happened. But nonetheless, Baker Mayfield is resilient. The Eagles are not playing well, and he's going to do everything in his power to make sure that the Buccaneers are headed to the divisional round of the playoffs.
Yeah, I think those two games are – because that game's on Monday night, and –
oh, God. Yeah. Ooh, in prime time.
Yeah, I don't know why they made that the prime time. That's not the game I would have picked to put on Monday night.
I put Dallas and – or not Dallas. I put
I would have put Dallas at Green Bay. Well, that's going to get good rate. That game's going to get good ratings no matter what.
I would have
So
put them over. The game that should be spotlighted is the Rams and the Lions. To me,
yeah,
should
that's
be
that's
your
that's the
prime
best
time
game
spot.
this weekend. So with all of that being said, we're going to jump into our bets of the week. If you or anyone you know is struggling with a gambling addiction, contact the Problem Gambling Helpline at 800-522-4700. Professionals are available 24 hours a day to take your call. Help is available at no cost to the problem gambler or their concerned others. I'm going to kind of quickly run through my week last week. Went 1-2, little bit of a struggle. I had the Texans -1.5 versus the Colts. That hit. Bears +3 versus the Packers. Bears let me down big time. Jets and Patriots over 30.5. What a joke that bet was. Idiot. Idiot.
Betting the Patriots over is just a tough one. It was a low enough line to where you could justify it, but they still
I
let you
thought
down.
maybe, but the weather was worse than I probably thought it was going to be. It was a rough go around for me. How'd you do, Owen?
I had another pretty solid week, a 2-1 week again for me. Miami +3 versus Buffalo. That's the one that didn't hit, and honestly, probably my risky of the 3 picks, so I'm okay with it. Baltimore Pitt under 35.5. Again, a good old AFC North under is never a bad bet to have, especially when you have 2 backup quarterbacks playing. And then wasn't even fully a pick, just a big old middle finger to Arthur Smith and the Falcons on the way out for how many times they have messed up a parlay for us this year. I had the Saints -3 versus the Falcons, cashed.
What a wild, jeez. We didn't
I
even
love
talk
it.
about it, but
The fact that
it's
I was like, when I picked it, I was like, man, I love this pick just because like it just fits for what we've dealt with this year. And the fact that it cashed, even better.
Jameis, what was up with that late touchdown? We made a team decision as an offense. DA didn't know anything about it. So you just do whatever the hell you wanted, Jameis. I
Yeah.
mean, it was a team decision. Jamal hadn't scored a touchdown all year. He's led the league in touchdowns last year, so we thought he deserved one. Oh, so you took victory formation and told Dennis Allen, he said, "Hey, pal, take this right up your play call." I'm like, what in the world is this?
Yeah. I see where Jameis is coming from. I understand where you're coming from. Doing it out of victory formation to me is the
That was
whoa,
that
that
was a
is
bad call.
you
Bad call.
cannot do that. If you want to make this call, fine. Line up in single back. Make it look like you're running a play. Do not line up in victory formation and hand it off. That's crazy. Also, Jameis Winston is probably never going to have a job in the NFL again because I don't think he's talented enough to be a starter. And that is the exact thing that I do not want out of a backup quarterback.
And the other, like, how is Dennis Allen? How did he survive? Like, the guy does nothing but underperform and has clearly does not have complete control of this team whatsoever. And the Saints are like, it's fine. We'll keep going with it.
To me, that's one of the ones where he kept his job because he might not be a great head coach. Who the hell's taking that job? Hey, by the way, we don't have a quarterback and we're 90 million in the hole. Do you want
Hey,
to?
but they have a trade asset. They're going to be able to trade Taysom Hill for like a 4th rounder so he can be the starter in Denver next year.
God.
All right. So on the season, my computer is randomly glitching out and showing me something that I don't really care about, and I don't know how to make it go away. So okay, there
I
it
can read
goes.
your record if you want. Okay.
My record's 23 and 27 and 1. Yours for the season is 27, 14 and 1. You are having an amazing season making bets this year.
I should be rich. I hate
Yeah,
myself.
you should be. Um, all right, my 3 picks for this year is going to be Browns -2.5 versus the Texans. It's
Fun
under the
pick.
field goal. You know, I love under the field goal ones. I do think it's a close game, so it scares me a little bit. If the Browns were +1 here, I'd probably take Browns money line over Browns +1, but it's such a close line. I'll take it. I do have Rams money line. That's why I don't know why I wrote down the Lions there. I have Rams money line.
That's
I
funny.
don't want the +3. I'll just take the Rams to win this game outright. I'm that
Smart.
confident in this pick. So I very rarely am a money line guy. Most of the time I'm like, man, if they're giving you 3 points, take the 3 points. This one I'm pretty confident on. I just don't, something in my gut, it doesn't feel good about Dan Campbell. So I'll take Rams money line. Chiefs Dolphin under 44.5. It feels like that
God
line is
damn
too
it.
high. It does. You can copy me. Who cares?
I might. I
Um,
might just pick 3 and then we could share that one. We'll see.
yeah. So that feels like one to me that I'm like, yeah, that line feels way too high. I'll take the under on that line any day of the week.
Yeah. Truthfully, well, the reason I say damn is just because I'm sitting here looking. I'm trying to make these picks on the fly as we're doing the playoff predictions. And honest to God, I think you could saddle all three AFC unders in a parlay and feel pretty confident in yourself. Um, the only one that I'm really shaky on is Cleveland and Houston. I think
Yeah.
I can't see 44.5 in that game.
It's a
Like
dome, so maybe,
I
but I don't
could
know.
see it.
Maybe.
I am going to share Kansas City and Miami under 44. That should be the lock of the week easily, I think.
If you take the over in the Cleveland game, to me, you're betting on Joe Flacco playing like Joe Flacco played for the last 4
Yeah,
weeks.
because what I mean, that's 24-20. That covers
Mhm.
24-20. That's about it.
Yeah.
Um,
Or anything more than those two scores. So
yeah. I want to take Buffalo and Pittsburgh under 36.5. I really do, but I think that there's a chance that Buffalo gets up and down the field enough to put up 28, 35 by themselves. I think, damn, I don't know. I'm going to go under in Philly and Tampa as well.
mhm.
Under 43.5 for those two. I'll have to actually type these in here so we can have them on the script afterwards. And I'm going to ride the under on Houston and Cleveland too. I'm just going to take the unders all the way through.
Okay.
So I'll
3
take the
unders.
under on Cleveland and Houston again. I think it's just going to be a bit more of a defensive game. I think if you could get it at like 46.5, like cover yourself a bit more, if you get it at like 47.5, it's probably where like the sweet spot for me. It's sitting at 44.5. I'm still probably going to take it pretty confidently. Hammer the Chiefs and Dolphins under 44. If that game goes
Yeah.
over 44, I'll shave
Don't
my head.
say
I don't
don't
know.
yeah, don't say
Nah.
something you're gonna regret
I'm gonna
because
I'm trying to grow my hair out, but going bald is just about the same thing for me at this point. But yeah, take that under, and I'll go with the under in the Philly and the Tampa game at 43.5 as well.
everybody jokes about the dad bod. Nobody jokes about the dad hairline because
No
that's
one
what they
does.
don't tell you comes. That's
Nope.
they fall shortly behind
Yeah,
there.
I've had a
And
gut for 20 years. I'm okay with it. I've gotten used to it. I'm no problem. This is unacceptable.
it,
So
is your dad bald?
yeah, he's got the classic nothing up here and
Sides.
patches in here and the
Yeah.
strap
So
around.
you
Yeah,
know.
I knew it was coming. I didn't think 25 I was going to see the signs of it. My last hairstyle I think accelerated it a bit and it only accelerated it on one side. So,
Mhm.
yeah, we're going to see. I'm going to try to cover it up. So, get used to seeing especially this North Face hat. It's the
It's
one that
that's
goes with
smart.
everything.
That's smart. Yeah, when you're going bald, cover it up as best you can. That always turns out really good and looks
Yeah, I'm
really
sure
good
it's
on
not going to
people.
rub any more hair out on the way in anyways.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It's like, yeah, good call. Try to patch
yeah.
it. But
Just for the show. Get used to seeing the North Face hat. It goes with just about everything I wear. So if you see this for the next couple of shows into the off season, you know why.
all right, if you've made it through 90 minutes, we greatly appreciate you. We'll see how this format. I mean, this is how we used to do the show, but we've been doing the 2 episodes to make life easy. But we just went so. I mean, we knew like Black
Black
Monday.
Monday was going to do it.
Yeah, Black Monday off season stuff, draft. This is where this show really starts to accelerate and excel. It's topics we're both super passionate about. I love head coaching candidates. I would love like if anyone wants to hire me to be a head coach like analyst, and you just hire me to
Analyst.
come in and be like, hey, do interviews and tell us who you think we should hire. I'd gladly do that any day
Yeah,
of the
this
week.
is the crazy time of the year because we're down in the playoffs, right? We feel like we got to talk about every game, but also it's fucking Black Monday. We got to talk about this. Like,
Trying to remember, Tom Palacero was on the Dan Patrick show.
mhm.
And Dan was like, are there any hypotheticals that we're not talking about? And Tom said, I think the best line I've heard was, reality is for once way greater than any hypothetical you could talk about. And I was like, it's honestly true right now. Like, this
Yeah,
is the wildest. Like, we talk about, like, oh, I didn't see that Black Friday. Like, I didn't see that. Like, there's always a surprise or two hiring. This year, there's been like 3. Like, I didn't see Pete Carroll getting fired. I didn't see Mike Vrabel getting fired. Belichick, there was kind of suspicion, but like, I thought maybe he'd get traded and it'd make it harder for him. But now these guys are just out here. Jim Harbaugh is going to be out there. Like,
a
it's crazy.
1/4 of the league has open head coaching vacancies currently. We have 8 coaching vacancies
Yeah,
amongst 32 teams. That is a fourth of the league. And again, somehow Buffalo loses. That job's open, right? Philly, maybe if it's a
maybe.
horrible collapse. I
Could
think
be.
it would be an overreaction after losing both coordinators, but with
I
the
think
guys
so
that are
too.
available, it's hard not to think about it, right? I think Tampa should be up there. Truthfully, I know they made the playoffs or whatever. He should have been fired last year. It's still Lovie Smith, right? I think, or
Todd
not
Bowles.
Lovey, Todd Bowles.
Todd
Yeah,
Bowles.
that's what I
Yeah,
meant. Yeah,
it is still Todd Bowles. They're in a weird spot because it's like, where does that job fall? That's not a top job.
that's fair. I don't. I
Mike
do. I would
Evans.
have to look at their cap situation and all these things
Yeah,
where they're at,
Mike's a
but
free agent this year, so it's like it's just they're in a weird spot.
and they
They're like
are. I know they have a couple bad contracts, but
there's just such a there's such an in between team. Like
yeah,
it's like there's some talent, but then they're overpaying a lot of guys. It's just weird.
they remind me a lot of Tennessee. So I mean, they're just
Yeah,
without the good draft position. So
pretty much. All right.
well,
Well, thanks for listening this far. We'll see you on the next one.
are you sure about that?
Maybe not. Failed to stop recording. You cannot access the server. Nice.
That's a problem.
Can
So
I
it's
pause? Nope. I can't pause. I can't stop. I definitely don't want to refresh
oh god,
because we'll lose everything that way.
oh god, I'm terrified.
Can you pause or anything?
What is this? What does this button do?
Top left? No.
No, I got nothing.
This is not good.
Well, remember we're right at like 134.50, 135.
Oh shit! I stopped taking notes on when some of that shit transitioned. I didn't do bets. I can figure that out.
I mean, that was the fact that we got out at an hour and a half is fucking nuts. I was like, when we were at an hour for Black Monday and trivia,